Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to be going through my top 5 favourite silent horror movies. Silent horror has sort of become its own subgenre in this day and age, and although I don't watch these movies all that often, I do like revisiting them from time to time and checking them out. And I've actually had quite a few recent requests from my viewers to cover more vintage and silent cinema. So hopefully this will be an enjoyable video to you old school aficionados out there. And we really are going old with this one. I believe the youngest movie in this video, if you will, is 96 years old, which is just incredible to think about that. So although I am going off memory with these movies, it did occur to me how kind of visually striking these films were and how they stay in the memory rather effectively. So yeah, this should be a fun one. So let's get straight into it. This is my top 5 favourite silent horror movies. And just to preface, I am going to leave Nosferatu off this list. I think that one gets adequately recognised in this day and age, and rightfully so. It's an excellent horror film and an iconic movie from its time, but I think that's been covered enough, and this is kind of an opportunity to bring 5 alternative silent horror films that maybe don't get mentioned as much as Nosferatu. In at number 5 we have Haxon from 1922, Benjamin Christensen's documentary looking at witchcraft through the ages, from its early pagan roots, its development through Eastern Europe, and where it sort of sits in what was a then early 20th century. And this one is part kind of educational documentary, part horror movie, and part nightmare fuel. The images in this movie are really strong. They're unsettling, sometimes they're downright terrifying, visually striking, and parts of this movie just look impossibly old. Like there are shots in this movie that look like they're from Stone Age times, and you're kind of thinking there's no way this could even have been filmed back in this day and age. But it just looks amazing and is strangely captivating. Haxon, it kind of feels like one that might be hard to access, kind of this educational movie about witchcraft from this just seemingly ancient time, but it does keep you involved, and I did find it genuinely interesting. And we get some really good shots of things like witches huddled around a cauldron, things that are stereotypical in this day and age, but seeing them pan out in this kind of legit vintage silent film are really cool. We get a look at some of the religious connotations of witchcraft, and there's some quite effective shots within like churches and monasteries and things like that. And we get a really visually striking look at a representation of the devil and what he gets up to. And again, he's really creepy in this. And Haxon, like with all the films on this list, I'm going to say this probably on repeat, but its vintage, dusty, old look and feel actually add to the effectiveness of this one and really kind of transport you to this world that's almost kind of dreamlike. It's sort of dark and dusty and cobwebby, but yeah, strangely ethereal at the same time. Really makes for an engaging view. So yeah, don't be put off that this is kind of almost like an educational documentary and one that's over 100 years old. It is oddly captivating and interesting, and I even did learn a couple of things whilst watching Haxon. So yeah, it's a really good example of silent horror with that striking imagery and moments that are still genuinely creepy. So in at number 5 we have Haxon. In at number 4 we have The Phantom Carriage from 1921. This is a Swedish silent horror film, and apparently one of Charlie Chaplin's all-time favourite movies. This one kind of plays out a bit like a fairy tale fable, albeit a dark one, which sees a hooded Grim Reaper character travelling around on horse and cart. And it is said within this film that the last person to pass away on New Year's Eve, if you are someone of a sinner kind of disposition, you will be cursed to travel as the next Grim Reaper and collect up souls. And we look at these three sort of drunken guys, and one of them does in fact pass away at last on New Year's Eve and is transported into this accursed role, accompanying the Grim Reaper and taking up souls. It's a very kind of rudimental assessment of this one's plot. But this one plays out again beautifully, and some of the imagery in the Phantom Carriage is incredible. The shots of the horse and cart led Grim Reaper carriage travelling down the desolate countryside, and again the visuals of this from the 1920s are just unbelievable and hold up incredibly well. I challenge anyone not to think the Grim Reaper character in this movie doesn't look cool in terms of old-fashioned horror. And yeah, this one has a very kind of existential focus at its core. Like I say, it plays out a bit like a fairy tale, a bit like a fable, and it's kind of helped along with some really kind of dark, horror-y aspects as this Grim Reaper guy goes around. But it really kind of leads to the characters in this one introspecting and looking at their life and their life choices and things like that. There's a lot of humanist aspects to this one. It's not just a gothic, old, silent movie. And that's really interesting. Although it's massively out of its time now, I find the Phantom Carriage an interesting watch and quite an enlightening peer through the curtain of what people might have thought about, what was important to them, what they lamented over in this kind of long forgotten age. And it's done up in a real kind of meaningful way, I would say. So you do get the really cool, creepy horror aspects to this one and some wonderful striking imagery, but there's very much a lot of heart and a sort of personal touch to the characters in this one, which I think is really good. Yeah, so definitely one that's worth checking out, particularly if you're looking to get into silent horror. I think the Phantom Carriage is a good one to start with. So in at number 4, we have the Phantom Carriage. In at number 3, we have The Cat and the Canary from 1927. This is a wonderful old dark house type movie. This one balances haunted house horror, family drama and deceit, murder mystery and whodunit, with splashings of black comedy here and there, and they're all used to great effect. This one sees a bunch of relatives to this old man that lived in this big mansion estate. He died 20 years ago, and on the anniversary of his death 20 years ago, they read out the will and find out who's going to get his fortune. And it goes to this particular young lady on the condition that she's of sound mind. And as the night goes on and we get a few murders throughout the house, that premise is put to the test. But this is a really good one to watch. It's another one that really benefits from its old vintage look. The dusty, cobweb-laden corridors in this house really do well at setting the mood and atmosphere of this one. I like how the characters bounce off each other. There's a real kind of liveliness amongst the performances of the cast in this film. And as the plot develops and the film goes on, it really did kind of hook me in to sort of get to the bottom of what's going on and who the murderer was in this film. And as well as enjoying the murder mystery aspect of this one, it does have some great horror elements and utilises the old dark house setting to great creepy effect. I say this is definitely a good one to watch if you are starting out or want to get into silent cinema. This one is one of the more accessible ones, and at times this one even felt like I was watching like a theatrical stage production, which I really enjoyed. And this one did recently get a nice Blu-ray release from Eureka, so if you're interested in this one, definitely worth checking out that release. It's one of my favourite releases in the last few months, and great to see these old-fashioned films get like a pristine edition. So in at number 3, we have The Cat and the Canary. In at number 2, we have The Golem from 1920, one of the earliest surviving German expressionist movies. This one tells the story of an antique dealer who finds this giant clay golem creature that was created years and years ago by this rabbi in order to protect Jewish people from persecution. And he's brought back to life again and is kind of introduced to the world once again by this antiques dealer, but it doesn't quite go to plan. It ends up going on a bit of a terrifying rampage through the village. But The Golem is an excellent film. It might not have the same kind of striking gothic imagery that, say, The Phantom Carriage or The Cat and the Canary has, but this is just a film that plays out incredibly well. It's very well paced and is very entertaining, which for a film that is over 100 years old is an amazing feat. And The Golem as well has kind of an interesting degree of social commentary at its core, kind of like it sort of touches on the fraught relationship between kind of Jewish and Christian people, but it's very subtle. It doesn't bash you over the head with it, which I like. You can kind of delve into this film and explore its social commentary more if you want, or you can watch this as kind of an awesome monster movie. Either or, it balances those themes really well. But there's definitely a lot of things going on in this one, and things that you can interpret, of historical nuances and things like that, which I found very impressive with The Golem, and just add to the engaging entertainment that this one brings. And Paul Wegener, who plays the Golem creature, he's absolutely fantastic. He's a very imposing character. He's giant. He looks great. You could put him in a film now and he wouldn't look out of place, and he'd still command the scenery, which is just awesome. But yeah, The Golem it's such a good film. Definitely one that more people should check out. And yeah, just one that I absolutely love from this time period. So in at number 2, we have The Golem. In at number 1, my favourite silent horror movie of all time is The Man Who Laughs from 1928. Actually making this the most recent movie on the list. Originally billed as a romance film, this one found itself firmly rooted in the horror genre thanks to the garish look of its main character, Gwynplaine, played by Conrad Veidt. And Gwynplaine, he's attacked when he's younger, which results in him having this permanent facial disfigurement, which is a giant grin on his face. So everyone thinks that he's just like a clown and a jester and finds everything funny, when in fact he's actually quite a tortured soul. And he's outcast from society. He's kind of in like circuses and sideshows and things like that. But it comes about that he's actually an heir to the throne and has royal descendancy, which throws him out there into main society. And of course, that's not everyone treats him with kindness and respect. And the movie follows the trials and tribulations of Gwynplaine and his lovely wife as they sort of work through this and deal with the societal reception that he gets. And I won't go too much into that. You have to watch this one unfold. But this is a great film. It's thrilling, it's horrifying at times, it's sad, it's funny. And for it to elicit all these emotions so well and so effectively and be almost 100 years old is a really impressive feat. And got to give massive props to Conrad Veidt in this movie. He portrays so many differing emotions with the same smiling look on his face. It is amazing, because a lot of the times he's very pained throughout the film. And trying to get that across when you've got a massive smile on your face is a real kind of acting masterclass to pull that off. But it's got a really rousing ending. I love the ending of this movie, which I'm not going to give away. But this is just such a wonderful film to watch. Said to be the inspiration for the Joker, and still I think a character that looks effectively scary, and some brilliant makeup is on display here in The Man Who Laughs. It's just a great film, and actually one that when I watch it I forget that I'm watching a silent film that's almost 100 years old. It's just so engaging to watch. I really love this one. So yeah, my number 1 silent horror film is The Man Who Laughs. So there we go, guys. That is my top 5 favourite silent horror movies. Let me know what you think about these. I'm certainly not an expert at this subgenre, so I've been really interested to hear your take and your opinion on these. And if there's any other silent horror films that you like, let me know what they are. I'd definitely love to check them out. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.